Your hands tremble as you smooth the silk folds of your gown. It is heavy, suffocating, but breathtakingly beautiful, threaded with gold, layered with lace, and weighed down by 1,000 whispered expectations. Behind you, ladies in waiting tighten corsets until you can barely breathe, while musicians in the next hall prepare to play the triumphant march that will seal your fate. It is your wedding day. You are barely 15. The room smells of candle wax, rosewater, and fear. The gown you wear is not simply fabric, it is the symbol of your family's wealth, your nation's pride, your duty. You smile as you've been taught to smile, even as your ribs ache, even as your stomach twists. But what no one knows is that this very dress will become your coffin. A single spark, a careless brush of a candle against the trailing hem, and the masterpiece of silk and lace becomes a prison of fire. The music turns into screams. Guests rush forward too late. The weight of the gown pins you down, and the flames consume not just your body, but the dream of a fairy tale ending. Today, we remember the princesses and noble brides who burned alive on their wedding days. Behind the glittering myths of royal matrimony lies a darker truth, where beauty, tradition, and expectation carried a hidden price. Today we think of weddings as love stories. In history, they could be death sentences. In the medieval and early modern world, weddings were grand displays of power and wealth. Every detail was meant to impress: the music, the feast, the jewels, and above all, the bride's gown. But beauty came at a terrible cost. Royal dresses were often made of highly flammable fabrics: silk, gauze, lace, and muslin. These were delicate, elegant, and dazzling under candlelight. Yet they ignited instantly when touched by an open flame. And in an age before electricity, open flames were everywhere: torches along the church aisles, thousands of candles at banquets, and fireplaces in every hall. Eyewitness accounts from the 16th and 17th centuries describe noble women catching fire from nothing more than brushing too close to a candelabra. Dresses were layered and heavy, making them almost impossible to rip off quickly. Once aflame, they trapped the wearer inside a nightmare. One court chronicler wrote, "Silk burns not like cloth but like oil, bright, furious, and unyielding." To walk down the aisle, a bride wasn't just walking into marriage. She was walking into danger. In the glow of candlelight, beauty could turn into death within seconds. Among the most haunting stories is that of Princess Charlotte of Hesse-Homburg in the early 19th century. Charlotte was young, celebrated for her beauty, and dressed in one of the most magnificent gowns her court had ever seen. Her wedding was supposed to be a symbol of unity between noble houses. But as the procession wound its way through the palace halls, the unthinkable happened. Her gown, heavy with lace and soaked in perfume oils, brushed too close to the flame of a torch. The fabric ignited in an instant. Guests screamed as flames raced upward, engulfing her body. The weight of the dress pinned her down. By the time they tore it away, her injuries were fatal. She had been a bride for less than an hour. Contemporaries wrote of the horror with trembling pens. One noblewoman wrote in a private letter, "Never have I seen joy transformed to despair so swiftly. One moment we danced, the next we wept." Her story spread quickly, not just as gossip, but as a grim warning. Yet even in the face of her death, no one thought to ban such gowns or reduce the use of open flame. Fashion and spectacle were considered more important than safety. A princess celebrated in life, forgotten in fire. Princess Charlotte's story was not unique. Across Europe, dozens of women, royal, noble, and common, perished in similar ways. In Renaissance Florence, a young noble bride was killed when her muslin veil caught fire during a church ceremony. In Paris, several bridesmaids of Marie Antoinette's court suffered burns when their dresses ignited from table candles during a wedding feast. And in rural England, records show multiple cases of brides dying after gowns caught fire at the altar. Why did this keep happening? The answer lies in three cruel realities of the time. Fashion above safety. Fabrics like muslin and silk were chosen specifically for their lightness and shimmer. The more delicate the cloth, the higher the status it signaled. Safety was never considered. Flame everywhere: churches, palaces, and halls required hundreds or even thousands of candles to create the glow expected for royal ceremonies. Each flame was a waiting predator. Women trapped in gowns, dresses were fastened with dozens of hooks, ties, and pins. They were meant to hold together all day. This meant escape, in the event of fire, was nearly impossible. As one historian bluntly put it, the female body was less adorned than entombed by fashion. In the war between beauty and safety, beauty always won. Not every bride who caught fire perished. Some lived, but survival came at a terrible cost. Accounts tell of women who lived with lifelong scars, their faces and hands disfigured by the flames. Yet even then, many were judged not as victims, but as spoiled or unfit wives. In societies where a woman's value was tied to beauty, scarring meant social exile. For the poor, such tragedies went unnoticed. For the rich, they became whispered scandals. Imagine being a princess, raised to be the jewel of your dynasty, only to be hidden away because fire had scarred your skin. Some brides survived the fire, but society did not let them live. Why tell these stories? Because they reveal more than accidents. They reveal what society valued, and what it didn't. It valued appearances over lives, dresses over daughters, tradition over change. One report in the London Times from 1845 lamented the growing number of muslin deaths, a term coined for women, often young brides, who died when their gauzy gowns ignited. Yet despite public outcry, change was slow. It took until the late 19th century, with the rise of new fabrics and the gradual introduction of gas and electric light, for the tide to turn. By then, hundreds of women had been lost to a fate as avoidable as it was horrific. Today, we no longer fear candlelit gowns on wedding days. Modern brides are safe, celebrated, and free to walk in fabrics that shimmer without risk of fire. But the echoes remain. The story of the princess who burned alive is not just a tale of tragedy, it is a reminder of how fragile life was, how merciless tradition could be, and how quickly joy could become grief. And it asks us a question: when we look at history's most glittering weddings, are we seeing celebrations or sacrifices? History is not always about crowns and love stories. Sometimes it is about ashes.